Good morning. It's Witness Wednesday, where I share my heart and share how the Lord is working in my life, what I've witnessed of His love and His will and His works and His ways. Sometimes recent things and sometimes things from long ago. I've had an interesting week with people, and specifically men this week, who've expressed some really hard things to me. As you all know, I'm the mother of 6 sons, so it's all testosterone all the time. And what I wanted to talk to you today about was actually the chapter 4 of Proverbs. And when you look at your Bible and how it's divided up, chapter 4 of Proverbs is labeled a father's correction. And, in this world, I come across a lot of different people. I interact with thousands of people a year on a really high level, with deep confidential information. So it's not like, the drive-through lady interaction. So I get to know a lot of behind-the-scenes things that are going on in families. From the brutal things to the joyful things. What I want to talk to you today about is sin. And it might not be what you think it is. The first mention of sin is actually in Genesis 4, chapter 4, when God is speaking face to face with Cain, of the famous Cain and Abel story. And in Genesis 4, Cain and Abel have made their sacrifices for their sin and to honor God. And I'm sure that Adam and Eve had trained them and taught them how to do that. And they had instruction of what was the correct way to handle that. And when Adam taught his sons, I'm sure he provided also the resources for that. And when Abel made his sacrifice to God, God accepted it. It was done correctly, with the right protocol. But when Cain made his sacrifice, we are told that it was not acceptable to God. And then Cain got so angry that he was not found to be acceptable through his sacrifice, that he actually killed Abel. And God said to him, before that happened, God knew what was in his heart. God knew that murder was in his heart. God went to Cain and said, if you do what is right, it will go well with you. But if you do not do what is right, sin crouches at your door, waiting to devour you, but you must rule over it. So let's look at that again. God didn't say if you do what is right, won't it go well with you, because that's not sin. And if you do what is wrong, that is sin. That's not what God said. So you have to look at it a little more closely to ask God, what are you saying? And why that's important is because Jesus was made sin for us. So if we, I'm a grammar Nazi. Y'all know that person. I see that, and it's like fingernails on a chalkboard when grammar's wrong. Whether you're speaking it or writing it, the correct ran kind of thing. But it's helped me really actually go deeper in the Bible as I read it, because the Bible is words. It is a construct. It is structured. There's syntax. There's order. How things are written are important. And I've also had the opportunity to study 4 languages, and computer languages too. And that's certainly syntax and bugs and error and sequence and punctuation, even in a computer language, is extremely important. I think even more important than any of the other human languages that I've studied. But in English. And of course, I'm reading the Bible that's been translated from the original language that God speaks into English. but God also speaks to my heart. So that's how I can read a translated version of the Bible and it be accurate. Because the author is with me reading it to my heart. That's how those verses jump out at you, is because the author's there explaining his ways to your heart. But back to Genesis 4, 6, and 7. God goes to Cain knowing his anger, knowing his murderous anger, and said, if you do what is right, won't it go well with you? So if your life is not going well with you, check it out. What are you doing that's not right? I have had a year of introspection myself, taking a look at that, getting some training on how to better relate, and finding out there are tools that you do not get growing up that are needed for successful relationships in life, and some more than others. Especially if you grow up in a toxic environment. I'm not even saying abusive or anything like that, but certainly if you do grow up in an abusive setting, environment, you're not going to have the tools to have a healthy relationship, no matter how much you love the persons, people, your children, your husband. And also avoiding situations that are evil because you don't want to confront is equally unhealthy. What happens here is when you avoid confronting evil, your discernment becomes dulled, and you can no longer discern right and wrong. So in either of these cases, we need to get the tools that we need. And the reason I do Witness Wednesday is because the Lord has called me. I walked out of the bedroom one day and he said, equip the saints. I'm like, okay, what does that look like? What does that mean? So every day I ask the Lord, how can I lift Jesus up today that all men are drawn to him? How can I respond in ways to things happening around me that is redemptive, redeeming? And how can I equip the saints? So during this season of my life, this journey of my life, Witness Wednesday is one of those. And it's been very successful. And, the teacher is one who often is the best student. So let's talk about correction. The Bible is very clear that it's a wise man who receives correction. Now, in my real life this week, I've had 2 opportunities with men, different men, three opportunities, where 2 of them I've known for a while. One I met and probably talked to for less than 30 minutes. But I learned a lot during those times. Now, one friend I've known for a while called me about a situation, and we talked about that. And I said, well, if it's okay, I want to talk to you about something, a previous conversation that we had that I'm still trying to understand. I'm still trying to get understanding, so we don't have that same conflict again. So with your permission, I'm selfishly, and I said that word, I'm selfishly wanting to go back over that just so I can get understanding. I'm not doing any correcting. I'm trying to understand for myself and correct me. As we began to talk, his old wounds came up again. He started to get loud. And he said something shocking. He said, I cannot believe you're going to throw away our friendship over this. I said, what are you talking about? What did you hear me say? I heard you say this. I said, yes, what I'm saying for you is in the future, even if I see that you're about to make a huge mistake, I'm going to have to weigh my options. Do I let you make it? Or do I stop you? And at this moment, it's going to depend on what kind of mistake it is. Now, this particular person lost his marriage. He lost everything more than once because of in my opinion, of knowing the deeper things, a refusal to be held personally accountable for financial decisions. And that certainly can kill a marriage. Now, this man doesn't believe in God. He's rejected everything. He doesn't have God as his source. So he can't appeal to the true and living God and say, help me grow. Where did I go wrong? What does your word say about this? He has no context except he's got a reincarnation mindset, like, I'm going to come back as a dog next time. And I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like love. Your God doesn't sound like love. But as we talked, I recognized that his first response to what I said, misunderstanding it, was ill will toward me, because his very first reaction was to assume the worst. And I like to study behavior in people so I can understand, and not just them, myself. Try to have understanding. The Bible says, in fact, in Proverbs 4, in all you're getting, get wisdom. Wisdom is the principal thing. But also get understanding. That's revelation knowledge. So revelation knowledge can come in an instant by God just saying, blink, there it is. But sometimes those deep things have to be searched out, because it is the glory of God to hide a thing and the honor of man to dig it out. So as I was listening to this unbelievable conversation and the turn that it took, he's shocked that I'm going to throw away our friendship based on that. I'm like, okay, let's go back to the context of the sentence. The context of the sentence is within this thing that I said, in the future, I'm just going to let you go to go do your thing and use the wrong advice, because I had given him inside information on something super important. And he rejected it because he didn't like the source. And I said that to him, and he goes, yes, that's true. He didn't like the source of the information, so he rejected it. The information was 100% correct. He insisted that it was just rumor. And I said, the source is someone who works directly with the company. It was not any type of trade secret that was released. It was inside information, which was shared with me. I shared with you. And, while you could say that it's rumor, you're telling me over 100 people had, basically his resources were, I've heard that from 100 different places. And I'm like, okay, so I know that rumor can also be spread by hundreds of people, but this is someone who works through the company, not for the company, but is, a peripheral. And he just rejected the whole thing because of the source. I said, well, okay, did it come to pass exactly as that person said, or was what you were told what actually happened? Well, it came to pass exactly as your person said. What I was told was 100% inaccurate. So basically, I was right and he was wrong. But he couldn't receive it. Now, I wasn't being ugly about it, but I was trying to understand what in the world just happened. Now, again, he's not a Christian, so he doesn't have that frame of reference. But I'm trying to understand me. How did I go wrong? How did I trigger such a thing in this man that he just completely rejected everything I said, and then what was I going to do with it in the future? So as I equip the saints, and of course I'm a close friend to this man. We work in the same field. And I'm showing him the love of God. I want to know, for me, where do I go wrong in things, in exchanges, right? Because, I'm not out to change other people as much as I'm to change me. And the Lord did say, equip the saints, and I'm one of those. So I'll work on that myself. But because the same thing had come, or similar, had come up with two different men feeling like I was ending the relationship in the same span of 3 days, I was like, okay, what's happening here? And I talked to a friend who is actually a family and marriage therapist. And she's not my family and marriage therapist, but she is one. And I said, hey, I just literally got off the phone with this guy. I'm trying to understand this. This is what happened. What am I looking at? And she said, you're looking at insecurity. I said, oh, yeah, you're right. It was insecurity. He felt like he was misreading the cues. He was misunderstanding my motives. He immediately went to ill will instead of thinking the best. I mean, knowing me for years and knowing my late husband for years. I mean, that's a lot of years. His first reaction was to think the worst about me. And that has nothing to do with me. So if you are walking this road in your life today, and you've got someone in your life whose first reaction to whatever you say or do is ill will or thinking the worst about you, I'm equipping you with the glasses to process that. The glasses. Giving you God vision today. To see that that person is speaking from a place of insecurity. And to ask you this, are you doing the same thing? When something happens in your world and you're passionate about something, and something happens that you might partially understand or completely misunderstand, when you see someone do something to you, or you see someone do something that feels like it's related to you, ask yourself this and label it. Is my first thought ill will, that they are doing the worst possible thing to me or against me? Or is my first thought goodwill, that they're actually doing something good for me? That is the litmus test for whether or not you're walking in insecurity. I've seen insecurity a lot. I've had insecurities before, and God walked me through it. Mostly, those insecurities come from where you have personally wounded that person. There are people who just walk around assuming the worst about everybody, and you know who those people are in your life. There are also people who, because of what's at work in them, are going to be stirred up because of the opposite spirit at work in you, and it's going to draw out the worst in that person. So this is when the Holy Spirit in you triggers what is not the Holy Spirit in the other person. And this is where you have to ask the Lord for discernment. What am I looking at? I literally had that happen one day. I think 12 years ago. 12 or maybe 11 or 12 years ago. One of my own kids was leaning across the front bar. We were talking. It became an argument. And when he started to get riled up, I just stood there and I asked the Lord, what am I looking at? And the Lord told me what I was looking at. I was like, oh, okay. So I was just standing there, just, politely smiling and, hearing, letting the person talk. And they fizzled out and realized what was happening because I had no response at all and walked away. And it didn't really resolve the problem, but it de-escalated it. And there are other people, when you have no response at all, it's going to trigger an escalation because they want to fight. But you have to ask the Lord, what am I looking at? So as the Lord equips you today to walk through your day, and you are judged wrongly, rejoice. The Bible says in all things give thanks. It doesn't say for all things give thanks. It says in all things give thanks. Because those things that you're able to successfully walk through are going to help change you and grow you. So give thanks in all things, that you have a direct line to the Father to ask Him, what am I looking at? What word do you have for me during this time? And you may be pleasantly surprised. I remember sitting with my youngest son the year his dad died, before the first anniversary, on his birthday, in a restaurant. He was very gruff. I lost my parents when I was very young. And my birthdays are always the hardest. That's when you really think most about where you came from. And I had this gruff exterior across the table from me. And so I said, Lord, what am I looking at? Excuse me. And he gave me a Bible verse, the number. I'm like, I don't know what that is. I had to look it up. And it was the Bible verse in Isaiah, speaking of Jesus. It says, when he learns to distinguish good from evil, he will eat butter and honey from the land. So, wow, this kid is in some real turmoil right now, and I just need to be gentle and loving, right? And then contrast that. Sometimes it will be a Proverbs 4 day or moment where it is the Father's correction. And I challenge you, read Proverbs 4 today. The whole thing is about a father's correction. It's about receiving correction, walking in correction, and being present to be able to say, what am I looking at? And then to know, is this when he learns to discern good and evil? Or is this is a point that needs correction? So as I'm walking this out myself and asking the Lord, show me when to correct, how to correct, if to correct. Are you correcting? Because I've done that too. With another son across the bar. The son's saying something, I'm saying something, and then my next thing was to be a Bible verse. And I saw the look on my son's face. And I knew at that moment the Holy Spirit was telling him the same verse. So guess what? Mom doesn't have to. So let's release the people in our lives who have had the word planted in them that can save them. The Bible says, the word planted in us can save us. When we train up our children in the Lord, when they are older, they will not depart from that. So that means kind of like a yo-yo sometimes. They might go out, but they will come back. So you just speak to that seed in the spirit that's been planted in them. And you call that seed planted, the Word of God planted in your children and in yourself and in your spouse, in your marriage, to grow, to produce that fruit that God intended. And where the enemy has snatched seed or planted tares, the enemy could certainly plant seed. You call the seed planted of the enemy for tares and destruction to become sterile and to die and not reproduce in the name of Jesus. That's how we war in the spirit. We're warring too much in the flesh and we're not warring enough in the spirit. Now thinking back to how I handled the next conversation with this same person of conflict. When I talked to the family marriage therapist, she said, the way you handle insecurity and the way you handle conflict and the way you handle correction is to affirm, correct, affirm. So, of course, I had another opportunity to practice that. And I was thinking back also to Captain Catherine from the summer of 2016. I was leading, again, several men, 12 men, when I did a leadership training, multiple exercises over 12 days. We're talking hardcore military kind of stuff. And I had to keep up. I had to really strengthen up to do that. But I asked Catherine, Captain Catherine, who was a captain in the Air Force, said, Catherine, how do you lead men who have ego? And she said, Chrystal, women can have ego. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. But, I was a woman, and more women cooperate with me, I think from a point of strength, and they learn and grow from me. It's just a little harder for men to do that for a lot of reasons. But she said, you say exactly the same thing that you need to say with compassion. So now I'm like, okay, I'm a precise person. I like excellence. So I looked up compassion. And basically compassion means without judgment. So if you're going to be compassionate towards someone, your heart will turn toward them, but you're not going to be, I'm going to say, even judgmental. Like, I wouldn't do it that way if I were you. So you're going to say exactly the thing that needs to be said without judgment. Now, we have to judge right or wrong. I mean, obviously, if you're correcting someone, you're talking about right and wrong. But we're talking about not being judgmental about it to say, if I were in your shoes, I wouldn't be doing it that way, right? That's not love. That's judgmentalism. And all those isms are from the enemy. That's not from God. God is love. And that love will help people grow. And it will equip the saints. So I had, of course, new skill, new test. So I had a situation come up with someone. I was helping hang a curtain in a new apartment. And it got extremely tense. Y'all have seen hangry, right? I didn't think it existed until very recently. I've seen hangry a couple of times now from different people. And we were there, definitely. And this person he was a meticulous person, probably perfectionist, which is not good. Excellence is good. Excellence means I've done the best I can. It's not perfect, but I can walk away from it. It's not going to haunt my dreams. Perfectionism is, I did the best I can. It's not enough, and I can't get my mind off of it, right? So let's walk in excellence and not perfectionism. Anyway, I remembered back to affirm, correct, affirm. So I was able to completely change the trajectory of our exchange. So as we live and as we grow, Proverbs 4 is a chapter of correction, of father's correction. Now, my real dad I haven't had him in my life since I was 7. But I do have a heavenly Father who loves to correct me, and I love his correction. He corrects me with perfection, right? Not perfectionism. So today, I challenge you to read a short chapter, Proverbs 4, a father's correction, and learn who you are. Are you walking in insecurity, and you assume the worst about everybody's reactions and responses toward you? Do you need correction in that area? Do you need healing in that area? But today also, as you go out and interact and exchange with your husband or your wife, when they do something that, sets you off, are you harboring ill will, assuming the worst about what just happened? Or do you have goodwill, assuming the best, but you might not understand what just happened? I know families are closer in proximity than ever. I hear from a lot of mothers who are very stressed out with not being equipped to homeschool and suddenly having to, supervise schooling at home from a distance. And children are succumbing to the pressure. Some are giving up. But let's all approach everything with love. And let's get rid of our insecurities and have goodwill toward others. To assume the first response of our assumption is that is something that they're doing for me, not to me. And then you won't have so much conflict. You guys have a great Wednesday and read Proverbs 4. It's got some great stuff in there. If you need prayer, I'm here for you. If you need talking, I'm here for you too. Have a great week, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.